With another year wrapping up and 2025 about to begin, I've been reflecting on some of my favorite games that I've played in 2024. Across all the many genres, there were 5 that really stood out to me. Rather, there are 5 I narrowed down because I played too many goddamn games in an ever-growing Steam library of unplayed games. But today, I want to give you my top 5 games of 2024 in case you're looking for something to kill some time between now and the next set of game launches due out in February. Everything on this list is currently on sale via the Steam Winter Sale, for the exception of the Path of Exile 2. To be fair, that game will be entirely free to play when it launches, likely between summer 2025 and fall 2025. In my typical fashion of upfronting the knowledge of my videos, my list is revealed within the chapters in both the timeline and description, so you can quickly take a look if you wish, but I know that some people like to not have these types of videos spoiled. I want to be respectful of your time, though, in case you've already played everything on this list. Also, when it comes to spoilers, I'll only be showing light gameplay from my own footage or using the game's trailers to try and preserve as much of the game as possible. So any and all content in this video is already present on Steam's store page or what have you, so you shouldn't feel spoiled. But if that's all you wanted to know, please feel free to shut the video down and get back to enjoying your winter break. Before you head out, if this video does end up helping you and you found some cool recommendations, then please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, as each one of those things helps me out in a huge way. Lastly, you can find a link to my Twitch, where I have streamed all of these games as well as plenty more coming in 2025. But let's get started on my top 5 games of 2024 and the Steam Winter Sale. Starting us off is SKALD Against the Black Priory. Now, when the CEO of Larian tells you that this game is amazing, you know that's something you should probably take a look at. And if you grew up on the Ultima series like I did, then this game is going to really tickle that pickle. It really plays like the old school Ultima did prior to Ultima 7, I want to say 6. And it has a really cool retro feel from the music, from the pixel art, but of course, all complete with the new age technology of running relatively flawlessly at 60 frames per second, well, maybe even 30. And what's cool about this game too is it's going to play very well if you're playing on a Steam Deck or anything of the sort that's trying to do a little bit more of a mobile situation. What I like about SKALD is it taps into that retro gaming portion of my gamerdom, whatever, that I love so much, that I think is kind of the underlying thread for a lot of millennial style gamers. And even in the content that you're seeing before you, between the trailer and the commercial-esque trailer that they made, that's like the old school Nintendo / Super Nintendo style of commercials that they used to throw your way for any of these types of RPGs. And what I'll say is this is a very old school style of RPG. It is very rough and tumble in that sense. It's not a very like fluid one where you're going to be going through all these big and crazy builds, all that kind of stuff. You can really play this game just at the seat of your pants, exploring things as you would explore them. The open world, the kind of exposition of the narrative is a real big selling point of this game as well. Honestly, like I don't want to talk too much about the narrative because it's such a big point of this game. But I think what makes this so good too is that little nostalgic, warm feeling you get where the combination of the art, combination of the music, and the way the narrative is disseminated to you really makes for a very fun, addicting game that is great when you're trying to maybe wind down at the end of the day. You have an hour and a half to plug away into a game. It's a great one that you don't need to get so engaged in that you're really not going to be able to put it down, right? Like, oh man, I got to go to sleep in like an hour and a half, and this thing's going to sap my brain energy. We'll talk about that when we get to Space Marine 2. But SKALD, I think, is going to be definitely a game for you if you're looking for an old school throwback style of RPG that is going to be very nostalgic and warm and, well, just lovely. Switching gears here, we're going to move away from RPGs and into action RPGs, hack and slash. And Path of Exile 2 is my most recent obsession, and it's something that has really consumed a shit ton of my time. I'm not going to lie to you in any way, shape, or form. I played a lot of Last Epoch when it came out earlier this year. And Last Epoch is a great game that probably deserves to be on this list as well. But Path of Exile 2 does a lot of things right for me that I want out of an action RPG. And I've done a whole bunch of videos on this. I have a video linked in the upper right corner kind of comparing this game and how it maybe stacks up to, say, a Diablo, and how that really kind of draws a line between two different styles of action RPG. Path of Exile 2 is for the action RPGer that really wants very in-depth character builds. Do you really want to make a character that has a lot of really custom things built into it, a lot of really custom formats through a very large passive tree, which feels very overwhelming at first, but once you really kind of crack into it, it actually becomes extremely rewarding. And what I like too about Path of Exile is that the game just released into early access at the beginning of December, and there's already tons of content to jump into. Now, the biggest pain point that a lot of people are having right now is the difficulty and the challenge of the end game, and we'll see that evolve throughout early access, so I'm not too worried about that. In addition to, we're going to be getting 6 more classes throughout early access as well, so there's going to be a ton more content added in. Keep in mind, the game right now, it does cost money to play because you have to buy an early access pass. That early access pass is converted 100% to their microtransaction currency, which you then use for stash tabs pretty much, or cosmetics. That's really the only thing that's there for. But if you want to wait till the game is free, it'll be free in like summer 2025, fall 2025. And if you are looking for an action RPG that is very challenging, I'm not gonna lie, it's extremely challenging as far as most action RPGs go, and has a very rewarding character build system, then I strongly recommend Path of Exile 2. You will have sunk hundreds of hours into it. I mean, this game came out the second week of December, and I've already gone over 300 hours in the game. To be fair, I mean, this is my job, right? So there a lot of that time is the game is up while I'm researching stuff and typing stuff out. But neither here nor there. The game's still damn fun, and I'm spending tons of time in it as I very much enjoy the action RPG genre. I say it's probably my favorite genre to play. Switching gears again to another kind of action RPG style, but this time like more of an action adventure style. And Dragon's Dogma 2 was a game that came out at the beginning of 2024. It had a lot of hype behind it, probably because it was probably the very first big launch of the year. And it didn't quite hit, I think, like the way people thought that it was going to. It had a different feel than Dragon's Dogma 1. It had a lot of technical issues with frames per second coming from either a console or a lower end graphics card on your PC. But since then, the game has got a number of performance improvements, especially I had no problems to begin with, but again, I have a super rig because this is my full-time job. But since then, they have done a number of improvements and fixed a lot of memory leaks, and the game runs a lot smoother. What I love so much about this game is I get that same sense of adventure and exploring an open world that I did with Skyrim, while having the kind of over-the-top action that I fully expect when I play a Capcom title, because this is a Capcom title. And Dragon's Dogma 2 is my first real foray into playing Dragon's Dogma. I enjoy the way that you have this guy called a pawn who follows you around, and the pawn is customized by you. You can customize their class, their look, their race, everything. And that to me was a real fun way to make it feel like when you're playing a single player open world RPG, you don't get that weird sense of loneliness that you sometimes do. Like, I don't know about you, but sometimes I'm like in the snowy Alps of Skyrim, and I'm like, why am I cold? I'm not even cold in the real. I'm in Southern California. There's no snow here. I don't get it. But the game has a really engaging pseudo class system that allows you to switch that class depending upon a weapon style that you want to use. I played a lot with the bow and arrow, but there's also a magic archer that takes advantage of a, magical bow and arrow. A lot of different classes that you can evolve and jump around into, play a different style of game if you so wish. Do you want to be a caster? Do you want to use a big two-handed weapon? Do you want to combine these two when you beat the game and get access to a cool, unique class? There's a lot of different ways to approach this. And I think what makes the game so fun is that heavy action style of Capcom is imbued so well into an RPG format that allows for these big, larger-than-life style of fights that are really I want to compare this game to Monster Hunter, but to me personally, I like this game more than Monster Hunter because it does have those larger-than-life Monster Hunter fights, which I was trying to just say a second ago. But I like the fluidity of combat. I like how it feels more, fluid to jump between moving around the battlefield, attacking the monster, hitting their pain points. They literally have their little weak points, and then coming around and doing whatever kind of magic or whatever kind of big swiper or strike you're going to do while learning combos in between. There's a lot of little nuance to this game built into understanding how the classes play and understanding how they move around the battlefield. It's not just simply plug and play and you'll jump into it. It does have that complexity, but just not to the degree of, say, a Monster Hunter. But I think, again, it has a lot more of a fluid combat system that allows you to tap into something that is a little more action-packed for my taste and gives me a lot more adrenaline when I am fighting those big, hard-to-kill monsters in Dragon's Dogma 2, not to mention, of course, dragons. Second on this list, I guess number 2, I don't even know where I'm going here, is Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2. I have been playing Warhammer Fantasy and Warhammer 40K for 20 plus years. since I was 12 years old, and I just turned 37, and I feel like my knees are popping just talking about that. So I have been plugged into this for a long time, and I don't think that there is a single digital IP, well, maybe game, that really hits the feel of the way that the lore and the books, all the Black Library books, really portray Space Marines in the way that Space Marine 2 does. You truck right through a human and they explode into a red mist. It's not that drastic in the books, but still, that's epic. You have an amazing time playing this game through the campaign, through the operations, and the multiplayer. Word of warning, the multiplayer does need some love, and they say that's coming in early 2025. The multiplayer, though, plays very old school style of multiplayer. You're not going to be using kill streaks. It's not high adrenaline style of, say, like a Call of Duty. It is, again, a more conventional, old school, arcadey, quote unquote, multiplayer that feels a little bit more like Gears of War and far less like a Call of Duty. But with that being said, the campaign is a great slog through a really fun narrative that brings you through a lot of really fun and interesting things in the Warhammer universe. If you are maybe brand new to it, then it's even more engaging, I think. And of course, the big thing that has kept me playing the game for hours, hundreds of hours, is operations. I personally love playing through a bunch of different operations, a bunch of different difficulties, playing on different classes, because you have a whole bunch of classes offered to you in operations mode, and then unlocking different customizations to help me basically recreate my models from the tabletop in a digital landscape like Space Marine 2. Space Marine 2 has a ton of different weapons too, so you're swapping around. You basically have RPG systems within RPG systems in this game, but it is a challenging game. There are difficulties that are going to scale with your character's level. Recognize those difficulties and play with those difficulties, or else you will get punished. If you're a level 5 character jumping into the hardest difficulty because you play a lot of these games, you're going to learn a hard lesson fast. And if you need any help, I've got, I think, 100 plus videos on this title by now. I know I do for Baldur's Gate, but I don't remember if I do for this, but tons of videos about pretty much every single subject, every single class is covered in the upper right-hand corner. I think, though, that Space Marine 2 is a game that I don't want to say it's a contender for a game of the year, because it didn't win game of the year. It didn't do anything for this genre that it exists within any different than pretty much anyone else. It doesn't feel that much of a departure from a lot of the games in this space, but it does feel like a real bang on nail of the Warhammer universe. It feels like a fun, crunchy way to play a Space Marine thudding their way through combat, through a mud-strewn, shit-covered world, and then into the face of a Tyranid, or ripping the head off of a Thousand Suns Rubik Marine. All those things are so visceral and fun, and even after having hundreds of hours in the game, I still get giddy every time I go through any of the execution animations after a particularly good flow state where I am parrying, I am dodging, I am gun striking, and I'm executing all in this really awesome blur of combat and movement. It's a game that I had so much fun playing, and the game I was personally probably hyped up for the most all of 2024, and it 100% delivered for me in Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2. The last game on this list, and I don't think a lot of people jumped into this as hard when it came out. I think that it had a real good hype into its early access, and then when its launch landed, I think a lot of people maybe have survival game burnout. But V Rising hit in such a right way for me. I already said how much action RPGs, hack and slash style RPGs are my favorite genre, more or less, because I've sunk so many hours across all the Diablo games, Last Epoch, Grim Dawn, Titan Quest, what have you. Can't wait for Titan Quest 2. But this game has that same feel, that same kind of combat. But put into that skill shots from, say, a League of Legends or any of those other kind of style of games. And Smite is another kind of game like that. Add that in, and then put in a PvP system into a game. Okay, things are getting pretty spicy. Now, PvP systems are, of course, it's going to be server dependent. If you're playing solo, you don't need to worry about that. If you're playing with your friends, you don't need to worry about that unless you turn it on for yourself. It's all either locally hosted, you choose a host to host a server for you, or you join a server online. It's however you want to approach V Rising. But what makes V Rising so different from every other survival game out there, and you're taking a look at Valheim, you're looking at Enshrouded, you're looking at Conan Exiles, all those games, they have very similar DNA in the way that they play, right? You have an entire world at your exposure, at your disposal, and you can make a base wherever you want. And really, if you're not super creative to begin with. The base is pretty much a big cube or a series of cubes that are rooms. And that's how it starts. So to change that, you have to break down a lot of your base, and that's kind of a pain in the ass. And, well, I'll make a second base, it's better. And that kind of gets kicked down the road, and you don't really ever kind of fall into the gameplay loop of base building unless you're really into that gameplay loop as a survival game player. A lot of people who play survival games are more into the progression of it, trying to get through different points. Like you say, if you're playing Valheim, it's knocking out another different biome and getting access to a different metal, to a different armor, whatever it is. That's of course a reward. But what I like about V Rising is it does all those things. So you have different quote unquote biomes, and there's another one being added here in 2025, a whole new, I think it's a snow biome they said that's coming. Maybe that was a hopeful thing, but a new biome is coming. And with that, when you jump from biome to biome, you can teleport back to your base if you so wish, and it depends on the server rules and what have you, blah, blah, blah. But the big thing that I like about the game is the game rewards you for building a base that corresponds to the crafting stations that go within it. Are you going to make a blacksmith? Well, you want to put down the blacksmith floor, put all the blacksmith crafting stations in here, and put up the blacksmith wallpaper. By doing that, it rewards you with faster production and less resources depending on where you are in that kind of room creation process. It's all unlocked by progression as well. And by creating a gameplay loop that rewards the player by taking advantage of building their base in a very specific way, you immediately start to create your base in a really fun fashion. And the fact that the game is isometric rather than fully 3D, it allows you to place a base very easily by using a grid system that I find personally a lot easier to map out. I can put it into an Excel Excel program and just kind of map out how I want to roughly create my base and then make it in the game. I'm not smart enough to do that in a Valheim or in Shroud or any of those other games out there. But this game allows me to do that. And if I want to delete things, I can go ahead and delete stuff and then simply add a new wall here and there without having to worry about stuff like weight bearing and stuff like that would otherwise kind of mess stuff up. It will not allow you to 100% do that. It will say, hey, you can't go here because now there's no there's a weight bearing portion, but you can just build out the weight bearing portion of it and be good to go. On top of it, the combat is extremely fun. The difficulty of the game is actually extremely rewarding too. Even if you're playing on normal, it's a good challenge. I'm going to be going through on the hardest difficulty when that new biome is added to get just even more challenge from that game. I put so many hours into V Rising, and a lot of it too was just simply building out my castle. And this is something that I've never done in a survival game. I always left that to someone else. Like, yeah, you do it, because I have like a brain that's like a paperclip. I don't even know what that means, but I'm not smart enough to do those things. In this game, I just really fell into it. Now, I also love Castlevania, and this game has a lot of analog with Castlevania, including a Castlevania DLC pack, which adds the music, and it has the actual characters you fight in the game, like the Bell Monster in this game. So there's a lot of crossover there. So I am heavily biased in that regard. And I also fucking love vampires. Anyone who doesn't like vampires, I don't trust him. You like werewolves? Okay, I'll allow it. At least it's part of the same continuum, but still, vampires so sick. And ultimately too, V Rising is a game that rewards you for giving into a lot of gameplay loops that fall back on themselves. Yeah, I talked about crafting. Crafting has a progression system, and also in that progression system is the way that you're going to build your base out. And in all of that are individual storage locations for each one of those crafting locations that is automatically fed into. What I mean by that is you go up to it, you press a button, you press another button, and everything that is storable within that, and let's say it's just themed like the blacksmith, all of your loot in your inventory automatically goes in there. The only thing missing from it is if you could just simply craft in that location like you can in an Enshrouded. But I think why V Rising is number one, and why this is the longest section of the entire video, is, for me, this was a game that had actual Game of the Year chops, because I think that this truly changes the way that we look at survival games. It adds a very fun, competitive style of ARPG PvP system, something that we've had in stuff like Conan Exiles and what have you. But still, I think the approach to it is really fun. It bakes in a lot of really great gameplay loops, and those gameplay loops reward you for exploring and being creative rather than just simply saying, hey, you're dropped in a world, go do what you want. Everything outside of V Rising just feels like I'm playing Rust with a different skin. V Rising feels like I'm actually playing something that feels a very specific way, and that's what I like so much about it. And I think it has for better or worse, changed the survival genre, that now you have to have certain things within the genre to match up to what V Rising put out there. And that's why, for me, it's my probably top game of the year. And again, I say Warhammer is an amazing game too, but I don't think it did anything completely different for a genre in the way that V Rising did. But at that, it brings our video here to a close. So go ahead and let me know what you think. Are any of the things that I mentioned games that you've played? Did you like those games? Did you hate those games? I think a lot of people, like I said, V Rising being my choice for a game of the year, that's a hot take, but it's my opinion. I can choose whatever the fuck I want as my game of the year because it's my opinion. But if you think otherwise, go ahead and let me know. Say, hey, I think Black Myth Wukong was badass and you need to try it out. And unfortunately, I haven't, and I do love those games. Any other game out there that maybe is on Steam sale that I didn't talk about. I didn't talk about Kill Knight, which is a really badass game. I just don't have enough time in it to give you a proper little review in this video. I think it's got like an honorable mention maybe. But there's plenty of other ones. Even Vampire Survivor got a lot of additional DLC this year that makes it still a great game even in 2024, especially if you only got like 5 or 10 minutes, you want to just kind of bang through a level real quick. Pop up Vampire Survivor, play it and spend $4 and get the whole damn game. You can get it on every single platform, even your mobile phone, which is cool. Mobile phone? Who says mobile phone? Oh God, that was bad. But either way, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that fun action. But go ahead and let me know below what games you really are stoked for in or I guess what games you really enjoyed in 2024, and maybe even what games you're stoked for in 2025. But as always, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.